Hello and welcome to the podcast Eat Better Food Today. I'm your host, Ken Cunningham, and I'm excited to be sharing insights on why we believe that health and longevity begins with the food we eat. The goal of this podcast will be to inspire, educate, and enable folks to live a healthier life and do it affordably. My wife and I have been on this journey for over 10 years and continue to work on it every single day. Percent of the profits from this podcast will be put towards child hunger with an initial focus on the poorest suburb in America, East Cleveland, Ohio. As a reminder, please subscribe to this podcast and be sure to visit my website, Eat Better Food Today, for links to this show, videos, recipes, books, and articles that our guests provide. On this episode, we're grateful to have Kylene Bogden. Kylene is a board-certified specialist in sports nutrition and is considered a leading expert in the field of functional sports nutrition. She wears many hats in addition to being a mother. She is COO of FWDfuel Sports Nutrition and Performance Dietitian for the Cleveland Cavaliers professional basketball team. Over her career, Kylene has helped to improve the health and performance of a wide array of athletes from high school to collegiate, Olympic, NBA, and the NFL. Kylene and I were introduced to each other through a mutual friend, Chef Ben Bevenroth, who just got back from France and apparently had a great time. In this episode, we'll explore Kylene's thoughts on food, health, and longevity and discuss what continues to inspire her. Welcome, Kylene.
Thank you so much for having me.
So I always get interesting answers to this first question that range from coffee to a full meal, and I know you've had a hectic morning. But I believe the best start to a day is a good breakfast, so I wanted to kind of see what you had for breakfast this morning.
Yes, well, as you know, this was a wild morning. I have two small kids, and our sitter called off at the very last minute this morning, so that means it was a meal in a blender. It was a smoothie. But don't worry, Ken, it was balanced. It wasn't just a pile of fruit and some juice, making sure that it was a balanced smoothie. So there was protein, there was fat, a little bit of greens, a little bit of fruit, out the door, baby.
Outstanding. So what is your normal, in addition to a shake, do you have another, like a standard morning routine, I guess, that you follow?
Sure. Well, it depends. If it's an ideal day, sure, there's a routine, right? I'm waking up early. I am working out before my day begins, getting two children out the door, getting to work. So no, unfortunately, there's no consistent routine. But yes, in a dream situation, if there is time, getting my workout in, just competed in the Pan Am Games, by the way, that was in Cleveland. So usually it's some form of track workout. Yes. There's a sauna in our house. So sauna, right? Breakfast, shower, out the door, kids off, then work.
Nice. Yeah, I heard about the Pan Am Games. My wife and I have been traveling the last couple of weeks, so we missed that. I was kind of following it on social media though.
Yeah, great experience. Awesome for Cleveland to host.
Yeah, it is awesome for Cleveland to host. So, the other kind of question I usually start out with is about the home pantry. If you have bad things in your home pantry, you will eat them. If there's a bag of potato chips in there, I will certainly eat them, and I know everybody else would too. So I'm just curious what you keep in your pantry at home for your family.
It's true. Well, I think it's probably similar to most families, but I will say, of course, being a dietitian, functionally trained, my chips might look a little bit different than your chips. My crackers might look a little bit different than your crackers. Canned, black beans, they're organic. But I guess to make a long story short, I just make sure if there is junk food, whether it's chocolate or chips, it's a great brand, great quality, minimal ingredients, right? If there's a potato chip in there, it says potatoes, sea salt, and avocado oil maybe. I'm not going to flip over the bag and find 42 different ingredients, chemicals, food flavors and dyes.
Outstanding. Yeah, we always talk about reading the labels on things and making sure there's only a few ingredients in there. That's always super important. So thank you for
Golden rule.
It is a golden rule. So can you provide some background for the listeners here on your journey from the University of Dayton to studying under Mark Hyman at the Cleveland Clinic and then kind of your current role with the Cleveland Cavaliers and forward sports?
Sure. I've always been interested in nutrition. I knew that's what I wanted to study from day one. My grandparents were from Italy, like off the boat, Italian, authentic. Everything was from scratch. I love that. Growing up with that really inspired me. I was always an athlete. I knew that when I ate better, I performed better. But I was trained very traditionally. So what you would think, right? Counting calories, counting macros, pumping chocolate milk, telling people to drink sports drinks, no matter what was in there, no matter what kind of dye they contained, it was great for recovery. And while that's fine, I don't think it's necessarily the best approach if you want a human being to feel well and perform well, right? Health has to come at the forefront. But I didn't realize that till, I don't know, 5, 6, 7 years into my career. I started off as a clinical dietitian, full-blown, inpatient, on the floors, coming up to the beds in the ICU. I transitioned to Cleveland Clinic general outpatient, right? So that's where I was practicing a lot of general sports nutrition, like I just mentioned. And I knew that I wanted to break into a higher level of sports, ideally professional sports. And I kind of started to study some of the best athletes in the United States. And I found that they weren't really following traditional sports nutrition. I found that many, like Tom Brady, were into functional sports nutrition. At the time, I had no idea what that was. I was trying to piece it together. I was Googling things all night long. And at that time, Mark Hyman came to Cleveland Clinic to start the Functional Medicine Institute. And I thought, this is interesting. I'm going to look into it more. Wow, they're hiring dietitians. Why not just interview to learn something new? And the rest is history. I spent 3 or 4 years there and kind of combined my background in general sports nutrition. And it just so happened the Cavs were looking to hire a dietitian at that time. And here I am, 8 seasons later.
I'm sure 8 fun seasons later.
Very fun.
Yeah, so that Mark Hyman coming to the Cleveland Clinic is kind of what got my wife and I started on kind of getting into the functional medicine philosophy here. So what is functional sports nutrition? What is that? It's kind of doing my background research on you. That's the first time I kind of seen those 3 words strung together.
Sure. So you're getting to the root of someone's health to improve their performance. You're getting to know their unique biology, the way that their gut works, what micronutrient deficiencies they might have, and you are tailoring that protocol to help them feel better. And when someone feels better, they perform better. So maybe someone is chronically tired, or they're really sore after their workouts, or heck, they have constant headaches or acne or sinus issues, right? That's all chronic inflammation. So if I work to figure out why they're experiencing that, right? So that is what functional sports nutrition is. You're getting to the why, you're getting to the root. And by getting to the root, you're thereby helping performance, sleep, and recovery. So it's similar to functional medicine, right? People come to functional medicine to find out their health why. Why do I have reflux? Why do my joints hurt? Why do I have cancer at age 40? And so we're sort of doing something very similar, but there's a sports approach to it. I'm really helping on top of that find clean supplements that are regulated for sport, that aren't full of junk. I'm really tailoring diet to that athlete. I'm creating an individualized recovery shake, and I'm often looking at testing to create a very specialized plan to help them succeed.
So what kind of, I guess, how do you know? So it's an individualized plan, but how do you know for a particular athlete what they need, I guess? What information do you need to kind of help tailor that?
Well, step 1 is looking at a food recall, right? That's very basic. It's easy. It's free. I can look at what they're eating and how they're feeling. A symptom journal is always where we start. How do you feel after this meal? Or when you feel poorly, what time of day is that? How did you sleep? What did you consume? What was stress like? And we'll kind of start there. And if tweaking that isn't helping so much, or if they've already tweaked it themselves and they're doing great and they still can't figure it out, that is when we look into maybe micronutrient testing, maybe stool testing. Maybe we're looking at cortisol to see what their stress levels are like. And then based on those results, that is where I create that individualized plan.
And how do you so you tailor that? I mean, athletes are different than I was at the gym this morning. I didn't have to worry about my kids.
Awesome.
So, but I just go there for an hour. I'm not, a professional athlete. So they must have different needs than what I'll say the average person or even average athlete has.
Sometimes yes, sometimes no. Sometimes it's really just fine-tuning their diet. Sometimes the fatigue or the farts or the headaches are coming from the fact that they're just eating fast food all the time, or that their protein intake is too low, or they're not eating enough fat to balance blood sugar. So sometimes it is absolutely no different than you and I. And sometimes it is. Sometimes they're so elite and they fine-tune everything that we are really digging in a microscopic level. So yes and no.
Okay. So that's kind of functional sports nutrition. That's kind of, I'll say, the pro athlete. What got you to start FWDfuel? What's that all about?
I just felt there was such an underserved population, right? Like I was the athlete eating junk because I was told it was fine. I was told, you're training all day long. You're in the weight room. You're on the track. Eat whatever you want. As long as your calorie needs are being met, it's fine. But yet I was tired and my face was full of acne and But that you're told that that's very normal and you're young and you're an
Right.
athlete, and it's just none of that is true. And even in the adult population, depending on your audience, they say, well, you're a mom, it's okay. You're a mom that works full time. It's okay you're tired. It's okay that, you don't poop every day. It's okay that you're on 3 different medications. No, it's not okay, and it's not normal, but we're bred to believe that it is. And that is why I started this private practice, because I felt there was just such a need across the United States that was not being met, especially not for the active population. It's hard enough for the average population to be cared for properly, in my professional opinion. It's just not the way that we learn things in traditional medicine, in traditional, conventional nutrition. But especially the athletic population, where they are training full-time on top of work or on top of school, on top of family demands. They're traveling in different time zones. They're stuck with a cafeteria food that's full of, chemicals and grease, because that's how a company can afford to feed a large amount of people, right? There's so many variables. Athletes are sometimes chronically on NSAIDs or birth control or reflux medications, and that too adds to a disrupted microbiome, a disrupted gut microbial imbalance. So when you put all that together, the active population in this country is often underserved, and that is what FWDfuel kind of stands to help.
Nice, very nice. So on the medical, this is a kind of a medical profession question. So I had the privilege of meeting Ep.32, who I think works for you.
Yes.
She was
The best.
leading a session at Case Western Reserve University. They are doing some wellness for doctors. It's an elective, but she was leading like a nutrition class for them and kind of a healthy cooking class. So why do you think it's important? Because I've had a lot of doctors on this show too. Why do you think it's important for doctors to understand nutrition, which is something they typically don't get a lot of education about?
Sure. And many will say, well, your answer is biased, but really it's not. It's black and white. It's just food is the root of everything, because food codes your DNA. Your immune system primarily lives in the gut, right? So every bite of food that you take sends signals throughout the entire body telling you to turn on these genes, turn off these genes. You can control so much with diet. It is unbelievable. So you're almost putting a Band-Aid over health if you're saying, well, here's a prescription, or here's this, or try this procedure, or this cream or pill. I'm not saying there's not a need for that, but food should be the base first. And then you start to get into prescriptions and procedures.
Yeah, and I guess and I've read too, and some of the people on the show have talked about, only about 10 to 15% of kind of who you are, your genes affect, kind of the outcome of kind of from a health standpoint. So you have control over 85+% of what, your health is going to be. So it's, to your point about food, it's very important what you're eating, how you're exercising, how you're sleeping, all of those components. You have control over that.
There's no question. I don't care if half your family has, a certain type of, maybe, I don't know, Hashimoto's, which is a thyroid condition, or diabetes. Just because most of the family has it, sure, it is probably in your genes, but it doesn't mean, if you take care of yourself, there's a chance that gene may never rear its ugly head.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we're traveling someplace the last couple of weeks, and so we're just sitting at the bar having a drink, and this guy's saying, well, this person, somebody died at a certain age, it's just in their genes, there's nothing they can do about it. And I had to interject into the conversation, say it's not just your genes, there are things that you can be doing to change that trajectory. Everybody in the family doesn't have to die at age 58. It's not a prescription to happen all the time.
Correct.
So,
and environment can't be overlooked. Exposure issues can't be overlooked either.
Right. So, whole foods, ultra-processed foods, and supplements. Kind of what are your thoughts on how it relates to general nutrition, sports nutrition? I listen to other podcasts as well. Some people are saying, one guy that I listen to, who I have a lot of respect for, is I take 75 supplements a day. And then on the other end of the spectrum, there are people saying, well, just eat these foods more often and you can reduce or eliminate the need for supplements. And then I've had farmers on the show that are basically saying, because of the way we're growing our food now, we're not getting enough nutrition just if you are eating the right things, so you need to have supplements. So kind of where do you kind of stand on that whole spectrum of the conversation, I guess?
Sure. So I almost feel like I'm in the middle of all this, right? Like, I've been doing this almost 15 years. I've seen individuals from all over the world for some of the most elite athletes in this country who can afford any kind of advanced testing, to those that are so chronically ill they can't even get off the couch, right? So when I blend all this together, what I have found is that the middle ground is the answer. It is near impossible to be on zero form of supplementation for many reasons, from what you just said about our agricultural practices to busy lifestyle stress, right? Just being overly stressed plows the body of just rips the body of nutrients to the point where you need some kind of support. If you're an athlete, right? Recovery, training, all of that requires more. But you shouldn't be. So yes, I'm a firm believer in high quality supplements. I don't know a soul that can get by without anything. Even just being busy with children is near impossible to have a perfect diet every single day. But to be on 75 supplements a day tells me that there is a root issue that has not been addressed. There's something that we haven't fixed that's requiring you to be on 75 supplements. So the answer is yes, mostly whole foods. Do what you can. But a little bit of quality supplementation, which is going to be different for every single one of us, is where I have found the most success in my practice.
And that's where you have to do some testing to kind of figure out what those supplements should be, how much, how often, that kind of thing.
Sure. I mean, for most people. Sometimes it's so easy to treat empirically, though, right? A good quality magnesium supplementation, for example, can go a very long way.
Yeah. Okay. So, as you know, when we did talk before this, that, one of my passions is health and nutrition as it relates to children. Today, more children are overweight and being diagnosed with chronic diseases than any time in our history, which is very sad. We were just in D.C. last week, and a speaker on Capitol Hill from the White House was talking about working with professional sports leagues to share what they're doing so they can, because children idolize athletes. So they're trying to do more from a White House level with the professional sports leagues. I guess my question is, what do you think, I guess, the athletes that you work with could do to kind of help educate children to eat healthier?
Well, I think a lot of them do a great job just promoting the fact that nutrition is really important. A lot of them will mention in the interviews now, right? I recover faster, or I healed from my injury faster because I'm eating well. I mean, just hearing that message is great. I think it wouldn't hurt to hear more of a clear message of, hey, eating real food is a lot more important than these processed bars that are targeted. I think about what was targeted towards me as a child, as an athlete, and a lot of these drinks and bars and snacks that are so heavily touted to be excellent for athletes are some of the most polluted products on the market. But I think so many pro athletes now are catching on to that because they don't feel well when they eat these foods. And it's nice to see a lot of these guys partnering with companies that are more holistically minded.
Yeah. So I know you're not allowed to share any names, but just kind of like a standard diet for people on a professional basketball team, can you make just some observations about what they typically eat in a given day or week?
Sure. I mean, we're at a huge advantage, right? Because we have chefs in the building, and I can kind of coach those chefs to say, hey, this player needs this, and we're doing this, and let's make this let's make this teriyaki from scratch. Let's make this ketchup from scratch. That's part one, right? We talked about that a few minutes ago. The whole food foundation is everything, right? Then you build on top of that. Just making sure they get enough protein is a really, really important component. Make sure they're eating enough carbohydrates, making sure they're not just drinking water all day long. And they're having the right kind of electrolytes without a bunch of dye and chemicals and artificial sweeteners. I mean, that really is the core. I don't care who you are and what your genetics dictate. That it should be the core for every human being who is active.
Okay. Very cool. How about, so back to children, how do we make eating healthy fun for children? Any thoughts? I mean, you have young kids as well. I know that was, when my kids were younger, I know that was always a struggle to get them to eat healthy, especially when I'll say under the age of 10 is even a bigger challenge than when they get a little bit older. But
sure.
Any thoughts there?
I always try to make sure that when I can, I have a 5-year-old as well as a 1-year-old, and just making sure that she's included in the process. I mean, it's a little crazy playing with fire, but I will let her help make the dinner. I will let her chop it's a plastic knife, but I will truly let her chop the onion at dinner. I will let her put the seasoning in the pan. But she feels that she had a role in that, and so she's more inclined to eat it. So I do that as much as I can. When we're grocery shopping, I don't just say, you can pick whatever you want, but I'll hand 2 options that I know are very good. What would you like to choose to go in the cart? I mean, I really try to, and I explain why. I don't just say, well, you're not eating that piece of cake. You're not eating that popsicle. I explain This is the reason why. Food is medicine. I want you to feel energized at soccer practice tonight, and this choice might make you feel very slow, might make you have, not to keep talking about farts, but to help relate to a child. Like, you shouldn't fart after your snack, right? And so helping her understand the why behind it and including her, I feel, has made all the difference in the world, instead of just saying, well, no, you're not eating that candy. Well, this is why.
Very nice. Very nice. So, when my daughter was in high school, which was a few years ago, she was a cross-country runner, and she had been diagnosed with exercise-induced stomach pain. And they couldn't figure out what to do, so she basically had to stop running. So do you have any stories about helping, I guess, either through your Cleveland Clinic days or your current roles, any stories that you can share about kind of how you've helped patients get from a particular condition, chronic disease, to a healthy state, I guess?
Sure. Well, it's tricky, right? I've dealt with some of the most advanced cases, but again, you're getting to the root of why. And so I'm looking at the why, and I'm kind of backpedaling from that. So in that particular case, first I would look to see if it's anxiety related, because the gut and the brain directly connect to the vagus nerve, right? So it is not uncommon to see adults and children with stomach pain because they're just stressed, they're nervous, whether it's before a race or a work meeting or family issues going on, right? That's why when you go to a race, you'll see the porta potty line is a mile long, because the gut and the brain connect. When you're nervous, sometimes things come out the back end. So in that case, maybe I'm looking to see if anxiety is the culprit, or maybe I'm looking to see if food choices the night before or the morning of are causing gastrointestinal distress, right? So I'm digging deeper. I'm spending an hour assessing these individuals to find out what I think might be the why. Sometimes you don't know for sure, but you can put puzzle pieces together, and that might be it. You know, water damage, mold exposure is a big thing in Northeast Ohio because the lake, because of our environment, that can cause a lot of gut issues and illness and food intolerances and food sensitivities. So I might be working to see that exposure. Like, is there a water damage? Is there a leak in your bedroom or your bathroom? Well, let's work on that while we're working on food, but I can't fix your stomach issues or your migraines if they're being caused from water damage, if we're not treating that water damage. No matter how beautiful your food plan is, no matter how many supplements you pump yourself with, I have to get to the root. So I know that's kind of a general answer, but it was sort of a general question, right? Like I work to get to each person's root, which generally looks pretty different, and that's what I'm treating to help get them from A to B.
Gotcha. Yeah, we had a nurse and a patient on a couple months ago, and basically they put this patient who had a cancer diagnosis and a few other issues and was taking like 26 different medications, put them on a healthy food diet with a nutritionist and a dietitian and a place they could shop and understand, what to buy. And she went from 26 to less than 10 prescriptions in the course of 6 months. So, I mean, those are the kind of things that really show you food is medicine.
Yes, and if that isn't proof, I don't know what is.
Yeah, exactly.
Amazing.
So, what would you say is next for you? What, you're working for the Cavs, you've got your company, you've got your kids.
Well, I'm hoping I fuel these guys so well till we win a championship. That's my next life.
Everybody in Cleveland would appreciate that.
I care more about than anything right now, to be honest with you. We have such an awesome group of human beings. Like, yes, there's a lot of talent, but like when you have good souls in the locker room, you want them to succeed even more. And I love what I do so much. I'm so passionate about this that if I can even play 1% of a role in their success, like, that's just all I want in this life.
Well, now you've got, the team has basically been held, not talk too much about basketball, but the team has been held together. It seems like we're going to have the same core of people from last year moving forward for quite a few years. So that's pretty exciting. So that should be, from your standpoint, those people very well too. So you should really be able to hone in and help them even more.
Yes, my fingers are crossed so tightly.
Do you do any travel? Anything you learn from travel if you do travel?
I do travel with the team a little bit, sometimes with how much I work. Family vacations are not existent at this point in time, unfortunately. Maybe one day I'll get back to that. But if anything, it's just understanding on such a deep level how to fuel well when you are traveling, when there's different time zones, when you're constantly on a plane, you're constantly on a go. I just have a newfound respect for busy families, executives, professional athletes. You don't understand it until you're in the trenches. and just knowing what it's like to be tired and how it's hard to make decisions, when you're crossing, 3-hour time difference and you're going from game to game back to get games and flights. So really more than anything, it's just knowing how to find great quality snacks and what works and what actually tastes good, I would say.
So how do you find, because that's a problem. I mean, I don't travel as much as you do with the Cavs, but I mean, it is tough. When I travel and then I get home, I always put on weight 100% of the time because it's tough to find good, healthy food. And even if you go to a nice restaurant, it's still hard to, eat as healthy as you would like. I mean, when you cook at home, you control everything. You control all the ingredients. It's much easier to eat healthier. When you've got chefs on a basketball team, it's much easier. But when you're traveling, it's more difficult. So what do you recommend for people that travel a lot from what they should be trying to do from a food standpoint?
2 major tips would be, number 1, first and foremost, when you go out to eat at a restaurant, don't be afraid to kind of piece together your meal. Right? Let's say you go to an Italian restaurant, most of it's heavy. I promise you, they have a salad of some sort, protein back there, and some form of a baked potato, something basic. Remember, whole foods is the core. I'm not saying you have to eat that way every single time you go out to eat, but if you do that 50 to 75% every time you go out to eat, so you go and you see 12 different pasta options, maybe not the best option. Would you mind if I had, grilled chicken breast, side salad, or side of cooked broccoli and a baked potato? That's okay if it's a couple dollars upcharge. Like, it is worth it. Knowing that just because you don't see something on a menu doesn't mean you can't piece it together. I do this in almost every restaurant in almost every city. It can be done. So that is huge. People don't even think about that. And even if you're following a specific diet, maybe you're dairy-free or gluten-free, don't be afraid to ask. Oftentimes they can make it for you, or they have it and it's not even listed on the menu. I find that more times than not. That is huge. And then the last part, number 2 here, is just making sure not only that you pack quality snacks, right? Most people do that, but that you consume them before you get to a point where you're in a ravenous state, because that is when there's no turning back. That's when you're going to get the gummy bears from the shop at the airport, or you're just finding the fast food chain or the fried chicken or whatever, because you're so hungry you don't care. Don't even let yourself get to that point. Don't ever let longer than 4 hours go without fueling. Whether it's just a handful of nuts, I don't care. Half of a jerky, half of an apple, something's better than nothing. But if you can abide by those 2 rules and you stay consistent, it'll change your travel game.
Okay. That's good advice as far as just having that conversation at the restaurant. The other thing I've kind of read about is if you eat, like if you go to an Italian restaurant, you brought that up, typically they'll give you bread first. You shouldn't eat the bread first. You should have a salad first or some kind of fruit or vegetable before you get even to the protein or the carbs.
Why even put it on the table, right? You've had bread a million times before. You're going to have it a million times again. Unless it's something very special and you travel here once a year, or it's a special occasion or whatever. Like, what? I mean, what's the purpose, right? I mean, to do it every single time that you go, and that can also really help.
So, what would you say up to this point in your career? What has been your proudest accomplishment so far?
Oh, that's a great question. There's just so many little victories that have just completed my life, but just on the whole, when someone comes to me and they've been everywhere in the country, they've been at some of the most nationally recognized health institutes in the world. They've gone there and they've seen the most brilliant physicians, and they still feel like they haven't made much progress with their condition. I'm not saying this happens every time, but when someone comes to me after they've been on such a long journey and they're just exhausted and they have nothing left in the tank, nothing left in the bank, and we're able to reverse is a strong word, but sometimes the answer is reverse, or at least stop that pain dead in their tracks, or get them to a point where they can function, or roll around with their grandkids on the floor, or go back to work, or get off the couch when they were told, sorry, there's nothing we can do. It's your genetics. It's just the way the cards are dealt. There's nothing more satisfying than what feels like saving a human life in a way.
It is saving a human life. You're making that person feel better. That's the other thing. People are getting older in this country. They're living longer, but they're not living a healthy, long life. They've got a chronic disease, or they can't, they don't feel like they can move. They don't feel like they can get up out of bed, et cetera, et cetera. So if you're going to live to be 94, but you're not going to enjoy it, it's not a good situation. People need to be more educated on how to live, increase their health span, not just their lifespan. So. And I wish I knew all this stuff. When my kids were growing up, I didn't know any of this stuff. This is kind of like all for me post, my kids growing up.
I was the worst eater growing up. Worst, even as an athlete, 3 sports, ate trash. I just didn't understand. I didn't know.
Exactly.
A lot of people didn't know. My coaches had no idea. I mean.
Yeah, this conference I went to in D.C., it's actually a luncheon for a day, but basically the good news is there's a lot of organizations that kind of started at the White House, and now all these different organizations, 20 organizations in the federal government that are trying to do things to get people educated, programs, conversations, podcasts, whatever, to get people more educated on how to eat healthy. So I think there seems to be some momentum about what we're talking about here. So.
For sure. And I hope it continues.
So, any final thought you want to leave the listeners with today?
Just understand that food is medicine. It is everything. Whenever you want to change something in your life, whether it's energy, athletic performance, something on your skin, whatever it is, food is always step one. And what works for you should not work for the next person, right? You're seeing all these documentaries and all these articles and podcasts on vegan and paleo and keto and this and that and, the carnivore diet, and nothing should ever be a blanket statement, in terms of nutrition at least, nothing should ever be a blanket statement. And if someone's coming to you telling you that everyone should eat a certain way, you should probably run for the hills, because that's just not how it works. So know that food is important, and know that it should be very unique to you. And at some point in time, if you've never played around with your diet or experimented with basic supplementation, it's worth a go, especially if you live in the United States and agriculture is not, maybe the practices aren't what they should be, and sometimes our environment is a little more toxic than we realize.
Yeah, we've had several people on the podcast, and then several people that I know, when they travel to Europe, for example, they feel better. And when they come home, they don't feel as good again. So the agriculture in this country is not too much to get excited about. So more farmers markets,
yes,
Whole Foods like we're talking about, but and if you can afford organic, do organic, because that is going to be better, especially if you're eating the skin of something like a leaf or a blueberry or raspberry, something like that. You should try to focus on organic. So
yes, there's no question. In fact, just for what it's worth, because a lot of people question that, a lot of times when I can test urine if someone's very sick, and I can see the glyphosate in their blood. I'm sorry, in their urine, but both. But urine is what I test. When they don't eat organic, glyphosate is Roundup. I mean, there actually is proof. If you want the proof, it exists. So you are correct.
Yeah, well, and apparently other countries other than the U.S. are treating that problem differently than we are, which is unfortunate. So. All right, so what recipe did you bring to share with our listeners today?
I have this amazing turkey chili recipe because it tastes great, it's easy. Whether you shop at Walmart, Aldi, or Whole Foods, it doesn't matter. You can find the ingredients anywhere. And it's so easy to double or triple if you're, kind of an intense person like me who's on the go 7 days a week with children and 2 full-time jobs. It's easy to freeze. It tastes good when you freeze and defrost it. And it works as a beautiful base. It's mostly a vegetable meat base, so it can fit any dietary need in the family, whether you want to add beans to it or cook sweet potatoes. It's just one of the most versatile, best tasting dishes. So I am going to share that with you.
Fantastic. Thank you. So we've kind of started in kind of the theme of eating healthy. We kind of, at the very end here, I've been sharing. So fruits and vegetables that are in season are, available everywhere, especially in the Midwest in the summertime here. So I post on my website and on my podcast show now. There's a website that you can go to. You can put in the month of the year and then a location, so whatever state you're in, and it will list out kind of the in-season vegetables that are available in the area. So in the Midwest right now, there's 60 in-season vegetables that you can get. Yeah, that are fresh. Basically, some farmer in Ohio is growing those and selling those right now. So, go to that web. I just encourage you kind of take a look at that. It'll be posted. But things like arugula, basil, cabbage, cantaloupe, carrots, cucumbers, cherries, corn, green beans, garlic, kale, onions, peaches. That's, a dozen of the 60. But, you can go to a farmer's market for, say $25, pick up a bunch of vegetables and make a fantastic salad, and it's all good in season. Throw in a protein if you want turkey or a can of tuna fish. It's easy to add some protein to that, and you've got a great healthy, especially this time of year. You should be thinking about just using those ingredients that are readily available, and at any farmer market or Whole Foods, like you said, Aldi's, wherever you can find fresh vegetables. So.
2 thumbs up for the dietitian on that one.
So, thank you for being on the show. Can you tell listeners where to find you out either on the web or social media?
I'd love to connect. So our website is FWDfuel.com. That's FWDfuel.com. Tons and tons of free info. I'll include some fun discount codes too in the show notes. And also at Instagram, we'd love a follow at FWDfuel. Again, FWDfuel. And we'd love to connect.
Fantastic. Thank you for being on the show, Kylene. This was great.
Thank you for your time, Ken.
All right. Thanks.